This break is brought to you by Netflix. Head on over to netflix.com/GameBreakerTV to sign up for your free 30-day trial and stream all of your favorite shows on demand like full seasons of Psych, Scrubs, as well as a whole bunch of movies, anime. It's a wonderful service, so be sure to sign up. Go check it out. Netflix.com/GameBreakerTV. Now, quick, order some IV because I'm sure a lot of you guys are suffering from withdrawal from Guild Wars 2. Now, it was a massive weekend for gamers everywhere, as I'm sure a lot of you got a chance to jump in and play during the open beta. In response to all that went on, GameBreaker Editor-in-Chief has written his latest series in his countdown articles, and we've got him here to talk a little bit more about it. So we've got Scott Hawks here. Scott, first, you talked about World vs. World and kind of how it's the first time that we've really seen it working with massive sides on both ends being able to put up a fight. Did it work?
Oh, it worked. I think that World vs. World was one of the. There were many things, but the real standout smash hit of the weekend was World vs. World. The Eternal Battlegrounds were full a lot of the weekend. People were queuing, wanting to get in there. In fact, I think people didn't quite realise that you didn't have to go to the Eternal Battlegrounds to go and get into trouble. If you went, one way I used to like going was if you go to Lion's Arch, and I think it's Mariner's Garrison, there's a portal for each of the different borderlands, so you could go to Eternal Battlegrounds, but also the red, green, and blue borderlands. And that's what we did last night. We were on the green team, and me, Richard Procopio, Elizabeth Cardi, and Larry Everett, we jumped in with 60 of the Gamebreaker community and went absolutely rampaging across the blue. Is that a feature that's going to stay? Is the ability to queue as a different server from a main city if you're able to play as green, since we were on Blue World? Yeah, we were able to. You were simply able to select what you have in Mist. You have what a lot of people don't forget is it's 4 maps in World vs. World. The Eternal Battleground is simply one of those 4 maps. That is the one that's just completely contested. Each of the servers has a homeworld map that you can go and take as well. So what we did is we went over to those Borderlands maps, the blue one, in fact, and we went and basically stomped around a lot and got into lots of trouble and had massive fights. And it was just, we were at it for 4 hours last night. We streamed it live actually on the Gamebreaker website, and we just had an absolute whale of a time. It was fantastic. It was back and forward. We were all over people at one point, then they'd fight back, then they had this keep that had arrow carts across it, and we were just dying in rain, like a raining storm of arrows. Eventually we figured out what to do and managed to crack it, and the sort of like the feeling of like happiness when we of achievement when we actually broke into that keep and took it. We lost 3 other places in doing it, but we didn't care because we got this one keep.
Tunnel vision. Hours.
Absolutely, you were just like, we'll get there back later, we've got that one, and that's all that matters. Every game, I mean, the great games are ones where you have moments you always remember that stays with you. And already, just after last night, I've got one of those. Because last night, with all the Gamebreaker community and the Guildcast crew and Larry and everybody, we just had a brilliant time. And the depth of the gameplay, how responsive everything was, how those maps really, you really felt how important that scale was when you had so many people running around like lunatics. It was fantastic. Loved it.
So you go on to talk about how the game might have been confusing for some people who were playing the game and just jumped in and didn't get a chance to maybe participate in the beta. A lot of people were asking a lot of questions in in general to their guild and fairly basic stuff too. But you think that a lot of this is kind of due to other games rather than Guild Wars 2's approach. What do you mean by this?
Yeah, there was a mixture of things. There were some things that basically needed more in-game support. Like, if you did crafting, for instance, you didn't need a gathering skill, but you did need gathering tools. You needed either a scythe to get, it looks like a scythe anyway, to gather like foodstuffs, an axe for chopping wood, and a pickaxe for mining. Now, those weren't for sale on the trade vendors nearby all of the different trade skill trainers. You had to go out and find them on merchants, and that was a bit confusing. So things like that need to be looked at. ArenaNet's already said in that case they're gonna look at making them more readily available. So little things like that, people got to be confused. However, what I found people were most confused about was they were coming from other games where that kind of a linear progression, even in questing, became confusing to them, because they were out in the world, let's just say just outside Divinity's Reach, and you've got all the renown areas, and you can basically run through, and things will happen around you, and you can get involved and complete them, and there's little signs to tell you what's going on, and you know you can pick and choose what you want to do and get involved with. But people were expecting, like, basically, well, I need to do that one now to complete that, to move on to the next one, to do that. And people were saying, well, I've been fighting similar sort of mobs, or I'm in the same area for a long while. Not reason you really didn't have to stay there. You could just go and wander wherever you liked.
But what about the fact, to kind of compound on that, because I actually ran into a problem where I was trying to quest through an area, and I had completed all of the dynamic stuff in my area, but the next area for me to go to was too high. It was 2 levels higher than what I was, so I kind of found it difficult to move on without having to mull around and wait for dynamic events to go on around me. Is that something that you can expect, or are you going to run into a problem if you just move on from an area prematurely because you haven't leveled up adequately enough?
Possibly. There is a little bit of tuning needs to be done in experience kind of thing, just a touch. It's closer than it was in the last beta, I know that. Like I was talking to Elizabeth, she mentioned before, the first one with press we're in, it was way too quick. The second one was way too slow. This one was much closer, but might need a little bit of tuning. However, what you could have done is, say, if you were outside Divinity's Reach, you could have popped over to, I don't know, Holbrack, had a look around there and gone for like similar sort of levels, see if there's some, you know, you could have gone and done some events over there instead, which would have taken you up a couple of levels. So you didn't have to stay in the same area to sort of level, if you see what I mean. It was very easy to move over to completely different areas, which would have had things around the same level that you hadn't experienced, that would have been fresh for you and would have allowed you to move up a lot. And also things like just simply learning abilities, learning how to do certain things. There was a lot of exploration needed, both in the world and sort of in how you actually sort of played the game and came to understand things. And there's not as much hand holding in Guild Wars 2 and there is in a lot of games, and I think that got quite confusing for people. Personally, I loved it. I love the fact that you've got to like find it out for yourself. I think that's something that sometimes we hold hands a bit too much in MMOs at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, we even talked about in general just kind of trying to find different things and figuring out where to go and what to do and how to equip an item, because you know we had talked a little bit about this over the weekend. You can like one class, or you can hate one class and just not have the right equipment to enjoy what makes that class fun for you. But we'll get into that in a second when we start talking about classes. So your third takeaway from the weekend was the overflow system, which we've given a lot of praise in terms of just allowing people to jump in without facing a queue. But I mean, it's kind of sparked some unrest with the community. What happened? What went on that people were disgruntled with?
Basically what was people were in parties, and then because the servers were absolutely packed, like ours served, Darkhaven was full within 10 minutes of the official launch time. I mean, actually the servers had been up an hour and a half before, and that's why they were completely full. But yeah, they'd been up, they were full, so there was a lot of overflow system kicking in. Now, what some people thought was the overflow system would be for the whole world, like you'd have to queue just to get into the server, and that's not the case. It's per map area. So you'd be in a city, then go to a certain area, and like you'd be full, so you'd be put into the overflow version. What was happening was people were in parties, and they were going to travel to those areas, and some were going into the area on their server, and then it was full, and some of the other members of the party were going to the overflow server. So they were being separated, and a lot of people were frustrated by that. And I can perfectly understand that. However, sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, I mean, I know for me, there were times when I was sitting, you know, and it was asking me, do you want, you know, I'd finally gotten out of the overflow server, I was into the normal one, and then I went to a story mode, which was in an instance, and then I came back and it was like, you've been put in the overflow server again. So I waited all that time to get into the normal server. I left the zone just to do part of my quest and had to come back, and then I was in the overflow server again. It feels like I'll never be able to stay in the main server. Yeah,
as I said, it was incredibly busy, that server, and that's part of, it's a beta weekend, and then it's going to be a big thing about getting the balance right of having enough servers. So there's enough so we're not constantly always in overflow, shall we say. But also, of course, I've got to balance that with not wanting a few months down the line when, concurrent users drop down a little, then you're looking at like server merges. So there's a balance I've got to look at. But what I would say is this, is one, there was a bug. People are supposed to be able to follow each other in parties onto overflow servers, and it's an issue that they're looking at. They did put a kind of workaround on the beta forums, which a lot of people didn't seem to be reading the beta forums this weekend. Basically, what you needed to do was get your party into a not full map, usually one of the cities would do, and then you would have the leader go to a map, and then you would follow them. And if you did it with that, so if you all started on the same server, together on the party, and then the leader went, usually that would be able to take the whole team with you. So even if you were on an overflow server, you would all be together on the overflow server.
Sure.
So there were system issues because it was the beta. It was a bit buggy, but for that workaround did actually work for a lot of people, not everybody. So again, I can understand people being annoyed with being separated, but what I'd say is this, is would you rather be annoyed because you're separated from your party because you're having to adventure on your own, or would you rather be annoyed because you're separated from your party watching a countdown on your queue time? To me, as I say, just in of itself as a mechanic, I thought it worked flawless. Like, it works so well. Every time you came up, do you want to go here or go there? There wasn't a big wait time. You weren't stuck hanging around if you didn't want to, and away you went.
All right, well, something that's incredibly important for how the game moves forward is how flexible the game systems are, and pretty much how the development team can use them to put fixes in quickly. Now, your fourth takeaway is about how ArenaNet responded to issues and implemented them over the course of the beta.
Yeah, I would say that right now there's a lot of ArenaNet devs with bloodshot eyes and exhausted today. They put the work in this weekend. What we're going to remember is this is the first time they've seen their game kind of out in the wild to this extent. There was a huge amount of people and a huge amount of strain put on their systems, and their analytics would have been like vital all weekend. So they will have learned a lot. However, I've got to say how impressed I was with how they were able to respond to certain things. When we on Darkhaven, as I said, we were on Darkhaven and it filled quickly. When we got into WVW, we ruffle stomped the other two servers, and we owned everything.
You pulled up the World vs. World map and it was all blue, everything.
Yeah, it was just we owned it, and that was it. So because we were in so early and full so early in comparison to the other two servers, we'd managed to basically push them back to their spawn point in their home world and just keep them there. And we just dominated it. And I'm like, oh, this isn't going to be great for the weekend. And we started talking about, well, when the ranking system comes in, when it goes live, it is going to take some time and blah, blah, blah. Then it went down and came back up, and suddenly we were against different servers and we were losing. Right. And it was like, oh. And then it blossomed.
This is what World vs. World is supposed to be.
Exactly, yeah. And then it blossomed, and then it was to and fro. There was like guerrilla warfare going on, all sorts. And that was because they'd looked at it, okay, and changed it, and it was quickly done, and it was completely improved experience.
Sure.
Also, things like the first day, lag was a real problem.
No, it wasn't. I don't know what you're talking about, because I've just DC'd and then had 8 monsters spawn on me and now I'm dead.
Yeah, there was a lot of that going on. However, they patched that of the Friday night, I think it was, and the next day it was much better. On the Sunday it was even better. It just got better and better as the weekend went on, as they were making adjustments as it went. So just from observing that sort of reaction, and now they were able to really improve certain elements really quickly and do it in a way that didn't didn't seem to. There was a downtime for quite a while on the Saturday afternoon, but I've just got to say I'm impressed by the systems that they seem to have running in the background and how quick they can respond to issues. It just says a lot of encouraging stuff for what the next beta weekend is going to be like, and also when we're live as a game, how they're going to be able to adjust the game in a very sort of like hands-on way that'll have a great effect as we go along.
Sure. Now, I spent a lot of time with the trying to get a feel for what profession I would like when the game went live, and I personally found something that really worked with me in the warrior systems. You know, your fifth subject is that how professions and how your experience with them changed. Did you continue to try out the guardian, or what was your experience with the different professions?
Well, I'd promised various people, including members of the community, that I was not going to play the guardian because it was just a sign of addiction, and I'm a weak man and I play the guardian again anyway, because I just love it. But what I was blown away by was I did get to go and play some of the classes, and every single one of them was distinctive. It had a different sort of style to it, and it was easy to play, and then more and more you'd start to be surprised. Like, I played the Mesmer, and I'm playing with, like, usually like a scepter in the one hand or something like that, or a staff, and you'd expect that. But when it came to, I've got a great sword that I picked up. I put that great sword on, and it worked. And I'd never have thought of the idea of having like a Mesmer with a two-hander.
Right.
And it was fantastic. It was just so much fun. I just ran around like an idiot with it for ages, just like gleeful. And it was being a kid in a candy store. There were so many options.
I've got to say though, it's definitely it's easy to play but difficult to master. I mean, I jumped in with a warrior at first, and when I first queued for the PvP system, the organized PvP, they gave me a gun and 2 axes to start, and it was excruciating. And then once I finally found a way to equip the abilities that I want and come up with a set of skills and utilities that I wanted, as well as traits, and once I made a synergy for the way that I wanted to play, suddenly I found myself just dominating multiple people whenever I would come up to them. It was within a matter of seconds they were laying at my feet. So but it was so frustrating for that first little bit of playing a warrior where I couldn't get a feel for what was going on. So I mean, it heavily relies on kind of coming up with a synergistic nature between your weapons and your traits, and there's a lot of complexity the way professions play, that one person isn't going to play a warrior the same way as the other person.
Absolutely, and that's, to be honest, that's the thing I absolutely adored about the professions is that it's got such an organic learning to it, because you'll be playing and you're going, this isn't working and I don't quite know why. You look at what you're doing and you'll try something else and see if that works, and eventually you just get a feel for it and it just clicks into place, and suddenly it's like, A, I'm winning, and B, I love it.
Right.
I was playing my Guardian in the WVW last night. And so I'm running across ground, and people keep getting away from me. I'm going with a staff and a mace, a staff in my switch to, and my mace in the other. And I couldn't catch people who are getting away over open territory. Now, for the mace, when you're in close quarters, it's great for the defensive abilities and that, but it's rubbish when you're trying to actually catch up to anybody. So I got the sword out, and what I was doing was, with my staff, I was using the symbol of swiftness, which puts an AoE down, and that speeds you up and anybody else who runs through it. So there's 30 of us running across land trying to hunt down these poor individuals that are running on their own. I'd slap that down, we'd all run faster at them, and then I'd switch on the fly as I'm running into my sword and use an ability where you teleport and blind them with it. So suddenly, because I just switched a weapon, instead of just watching them run off into the distance, I'm closing ground like really quickly and messing them up, and just basically bringing them down, and the rest of this horde who are with me just dives on them and rips them to pieces. And it was fantastic.
There's so much room for organic learning to kind of even say what you went through. What I learned with the warrior is, you know, with the greatsword they have this almost Bladestorm-esque ability where they'll go forward 30-40 feet, and I would use that as an escape tool or a catch-up tool. I mean, I would have to sacrifice the damage, but if it meant my enemy wasn't getting away, like, I could benefit from just using that. And that was what was cool about the ability system, is there were just different ways that you could learn and think to use your abilities to really come up with something that really put down, you know, we've talked a little bit about this before, about how Guild Wars 2 is not a game of gear dependency. It's a game of skill, and if you really learn how to utilize your character properly, you can really come up with something that will just dominate the competition because you're using your utilities better than they are.
Yeah, it's truly about learning both the class but also your style with interacting with it. It's phenomenal how exploration of what you're doing happens just by playing the game, and things start to click together, and you're just learning as you go, and you'll just start making these leaps of logic. Well, hold on, I'll try this, and then it works, and that's addictive gameplay. That'll just keep you coming back, and as like a core system of the game, I think it just rocks. I was just blown away by. There wasn't a profession that I couldn't stand. I've still got to spend time with the Ranger because I haven't since the last beta, and that one didn't impress me because. But I heard people talking about how much they enjoyed it. But every profession I played, there was something fun about it, and everything you felt like you were just scratching the surface.
Right.
Even over the weekend with the Guardian, which I've played 2 weekends now, I still felt like I was still learning the class, and that's exactly what I want. You know, I don't want things popping up telling me when to hit. You know what I mean? I don't want things saying, right, do this now, because that's happened. I want to have a system where it feels organic, and I'm making decisions which are going to make a difference just based on what's happening around me.
Sure.
And that's where I think Guild Wars 2 nails.
All right, well, now, next up, anybody who kind of went through the main cities or even watched the videos that people have put out of the cities can't help but be impressed by just the massive scale and the level of detail that's in each one of them. But there was something in particular about these cities that you admired in your sixth observation. What was it that struck your eye, Scott?
As I was going around, basically Friday and Saturday, I spent most of my time doing guild invites. The Game Breaker community came out in force this weekend, and there's no doubt about it. We filled our first guild up, because you can only have 100 accounts in each guild. We filled the first guild up by Friday afternoon, so we made 3. So I spent most of Friday and Saturday just sitting around in Divinity's Reach, just talking to people and answering questions and queries, because they were trying to figure some things out, or also just get invites.
Sure.
So I didn't get to see all of Divinity's Reach over that weekend. It's so big. But I was talking on the live stream I did on the Saturday, I think, and what amazed me was this. There's a section in Divinity's Reach, and it's got this wonderful walkway. It's got 3 different tiers to it, and you can see it all, and people are in the streets, and it's beautiful. At the top is a statue of Dwayna, the goddess, and in most games you would have, now anybody, I'm not going to name a particular game, but think of any city in a game. You'll have a particular sort of like point of interest, a statue or a fountain or something, and then everything around it you'll find will be, you know, like generic homogeneous housing or street or something. Just, you know, I've got my thing here for this area that's interesting, I don't have to worry about anything in this area, and we'll put something in a bit along the way. That's not how ArenaNet have approached this. Next to that statue of Dwayna, which is already around some pretty impressive like architecture and visuals, you walk 30 yards and there's basically a walk-through aquarium, and it's gorgeous. And more as I was going around the city, you'll just find something that pops out at you, and then you'll find something else right by it that does the same. They have got no fear about using their assets up quickly. Right. The imagination that they've put into it, and the levels of work. If you, in the article I've put, if you want to know what a labour of love looks like, walk through Divinity's Reach, because the design and every pixel on that screen is absolutely fantastic, and they do not cut corners. You won't see copy pasta all over the place. You won't see areas that are pretty much just, oh yeah, okay. Look, there's a fountain there, that's all right, that means for 500 square yards we can just have some houses. Generic. There is none of that. It is a monstrously huge area, but every part of it has something interesting in it, and not just one thing, lots of things.
Right.
And only by walking around and just spending time soaking it up do you realise, my God, the work they put into this. and you've just got to respect that. I just like the development team ArenaNet. You just got to give them kudos because it's phenomenal the work they've put into that game.
Pat on the back, golf clap.
Yep.
Whatever
Absolutely.
is your custom. Now, all right, so finally, you wrote basically about the state of the game as it's in beta, you know, what that's going to mean moving forward. There were definitely some rumblings of discontent from some people. How did you feel about the state of the game?
What I noticed, you mentioned rumblings of discontent. People really aren't used to real betas these days, are they?
No. Betas are early play periods, right? That's what beta means.
Exactly. It's like a marketing exercise, it seems, with a lot of MMOs. This was a genuine beta. Optimization isn't in the game yet. There's a bug where I think it's CPU locked. Basically, the game is on many high-end PCs, so people were adjusting their graphic settings and they weren't getting any improvement, and thinking, well, my system's just not good enough.
Why not? This is ridiculous.
Yeah. I paid several $1,000s and I can run Battlefield 3 on Ultra and Crisis 3, and it's not even out yet on Ultra.
That's how good my PC is.
It's that good, yes. But so if you can't run this, then it's rubbish and blah, blah, blah. But again, this is a beta. This is work in progress. But for saying that it's a work in progress, you've got to be impressed.
Right.
And I think a lot of the bugs were so frustrating because the rest of the game worked so well that people were like confused over, hold on, all this works so great, but there's this thing that's driving me up that bloody wall, and
then they'll get fixated on that one thing versus all the other things that are working great.
Exactly, and like the bug that most got in the way of me this weekend was on Saturday afternoon they had to take the servers down for a while. When I came back on, a lot of people who were guild leaders suddenly couldn't see their guilds anymore. And I was one of them. So, as I said, there were 3 Game Breaker guilds. I was guild leader of 2 of them and couldn't see the 2 that I was the leader of.
Nice.
Yeah, that kind of made invites a little difficult.
Just a wee bit.
Just a touch. So it made, communication difficult, and I put a lot of time into it, and it was frustrating. But it's beta, and these weird, odd things happen. And the reason that they happen is because this is the first time this system has been. This is the acid test for this game. It has never been put under the strain that it has as this weekend, and we want things to be found out like this now before it's launched. And as I said, I think I'm so impressed with the state of the game as it is. There are things that need doing. There's a lot of little glitches and a lot of optimization to be done, lots of things to do, but the way the systems seem to be in place on this of ArenaNet, the core gameplay, the impressive nature of virtually everything that's around in the game, you've got to be excited for not just launch but for the next beta weekend. I can't wait to get stuck in again.
All right, guys, well, there it is. We just gave you 7 things that you definitely should have wanted to take away from the beta experience. But what about you guys? What did you get to experience? What stuck out for you during this time? Leave a comment below. We love to hear from you guys. Please, please, please leave your thoughts below. Scott, is there anything else you would like to add?
Yeah, I had a great time, and a large reason I had a great time this weekend was the Game Breaker community, who came out in serious force. As I said, there were 60 of us rampaging through WVW. There were around 200 people in Game Breaker guilds. We were unfortunately not able to get everybody on the same server, and I feel really bad about that, and I apologise to everybody about, not my fault, but still, I feel really bad about that. Yeah, okay.
Blame Reddit.
People like, let's name a few people, Yoshi, 7BB, 7-Bit Brian, Lactarded, so many people just made this weekend fun. Elizabeth, Richie, Larry, it was phenomenal. And the Game Breaker community, I loved you before, but after this weekend, I can't wait to get back in and start playing with you again, because it was fantastic. Thank you very much.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. For more Guild Wars 2 news, keep it tuned right here to Game Breaker TV for Guildcast. That's Tuesday at 6 p.m. PDT. We will keep you updated on all of the Guild Wars 2 information and another hour-long discussion about how the beta went. So be sure to catch that. We'll see you guys next time.